Are you familiar with the so-called X-Files?
I believe they have to do with unexplained phenomena.
More or less.
I have plenty of theories. Maybe what you can explain to me is why it's bureau policy to label these cases as unexplained phenomena and ignore them. Now, when convention and science offer us no answers, might we not finally turn to the fantastic as a plausibility?
Logically, I would have to say no.
How's everyone doing tonight? I didn't want to just put out the intro video, so I figured I'd read a quick post off Lon Strickler's blog, Phantom and Monsters, entitled Strange Night in the Everglades, Campers Struck by UFO Light Beam. Now, this was posted on Saturday, August 29th, 2020, so just a few days ago, and I decided to read it because A, it's an interesting account, and B, I'm a Florida boy myself, so it seemed like a good place to start. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so essentially the blog post has several different articles written by different people, all about the same encounter. So I'm going to be reading the one entitled UFOs at Close Sight. Of course, I highly recommend checking out the other articles by visiting Lon Strickler's Phantom and Monsters blog yourself. On the night of March 15th, 1965, James W. Flynn was camping in the Everglades after training some hunting dogs. Shortly after midnight, Flynn saw a brightly lit object descending approximately a mile away. Flynn thought it was a helicopter until he looked at it through binoculars. Thinking it may be some kind of plane in trouble or some new device from Cape Kennedy, he drove his swamp buggy towards the light while it was visible through the trees. About a quarter of a mile away, he got out and headed towards the light on foot. As he neared the object, Flynn saw the craft was not a plane, but a large, cone-shaped machine hovering a few feet above the ground. The craft was about 75 feet in diameter at the base and 25 to 30 feet high. 4 rows of ports of windows were visible, with yellow light shining through them. Flynn heard a whirring like a diesel generator, which disturbed one of his dogs, who was howling in his cage and trying to get out, but could observe no equipment or occupants. After several minutes, Flynn approached the craft. Within 200 yards of the UFO, jumped out of his swamp buggy, stepping into the circle of light and raising his hand as a friendly gesture in case he was being watched. As he did this, the UFO emitted a jet-like noise and a blast of wind that knocked him off balance. As he continued to approach within a few yards, the UFO emitted a light beam like a welder's torch, striking him on the forehead and knocking him unconscious. Later, he told local newspapers, "I felt a blow like a sledgehammer between the eyes, and that's all I know." When he came to, hours later, he found himself partially blinded, and a painful bruise was left on his forehead where the light beam had struck. The craft was gone, but there was a charred circular area where it had hovered, and the tops of nearby trees had been burned. Flynn sought aid from an Indian acquaintance who helped him back to Fort Myers. He required medical treatment and had a small dark spot on his forehead. In addition to the painful bruise on his forehead and the effect on his vision, doctors determined Flynn also had an impairment of deep muscle and tendon reflexes, numbness, and loss of hearing. During the 5 days when Flynn was in the hospital, intelligence officers, under the orders of General O'Keefe, phoned him from nearby Homestead Air Force Base. After obtaining a basic report, they informed him they would interview him again when he was released from the hospital. Unfortunately, Flynn's encounter came at a time of maximum difficulty for the Air Force. Indeed, during a major flap in the locality, and they were doing their best to play down the sighting. Attempts were made to discredit Flynn, which backfired when many leading citizens, police officers, and doctors vouched for him. The Air Force's suggestion that Flynn may have hoaxed the encounter ignored the remarkable ground and tree traces and his own physical impairments, which his doctor believed could not have been faked. In the end, the Air Force settled for somewhat useless statement that, when questioned, they had nothing on their files concerning the Flynn incident. This is an excerpt from UFOs at Close Sight by Patrick Gross. Alright guys, I hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. And if you have any suggestions or personal encounters, feel free to get in contact with me at designatedxshow@gmail.com. Once again, that is designatedxshow@gmail.com. Peace.